And welcome, and I'll kick it off. Sorry about the sirens in the back. I will turn it over to Gretel from Beautifully Fed Food to introduce herself and get us started with today's demo.
And good evening. My name is Gretel Urena, and I am with Beautifully Fed Food. And Beautifully Fed Food is a women of color owned co-op, and our purpose is to actually introduce you to cook to good food, or actually cook food that is delicious and that is good for you. Also, my co-host with me is Karen Shepley. She's going to be assisting me by reading.
It's a different kind of assisting, though, isn't it, Gretel? It's a different kind of assisting than we're used to, since I'm not actually in the kitchen with you this time.
That is correct. But you are my technical support, so you are here to make sure that if there are any questions, those questions are answered, and for you to alert me of any of these questions. And like you stated before, you're here to interrupt me when it's needed.
Exactly.
So this evening, what we're going to be making is a butternut squash and white bean soup. And this is a very delicious soup. It's good. Right now, the weather is changing, so we still need something nice and warm to keep us fulfilled, if anything. So I'm just going to go through the ingredients real quick, and then after I go through the rundown of the ingredients, then we will start our cooking. So for this recipe, what we are going to need is some butternut squash, yellow onions, garlic, fennel seeds, thyme, avocado oil, chili flakes, kale, white beans, and we are using vegetable stock, but and salt and pepper. You could use it to taste, depending on the type of stuff that you're using. One of these ingredients that I listed, they could actually be substituted. Doesn't have to be specifically like this. So like butternut squash is a vegetable that is actually rich in potassium, vitamin C, vitamin A, and 1 cup of butternut squash is 87% water. So that is it will keep us actually full longer. And so if you actually want to feel satisfied when we eat, this will keep us full a little longer.
Awesome.
Yes, also kale is full of antioxidants and vitamin C, and it helps reduce inflammation. So if you are seeking to include foods that are anti-inflammatory, this would be a good choice. And white beans are rich in fiber as well. So I am going to go ahead and start our cooking. So the first thing I'm going to do, after most of the veggies that I have here, I already have washed. But, it's good that we wash our vegetables. And this is a butternut squash. It's pretty much what I did. I used a potato peeler and I peeled it. Then after I peeled it, I cut it in half. And then what we will do is remove the seeds. To remove the seeds, you can use a spoon just to get them out. And the seeds are very good for you as well. You could actually rinse them off and roast them. And they are also packed with vitamins and fiber. So that would be a good way.
I want to pause you right here just so that we can check in with folks. I see there's only a few of you on camera. I don't see anybody cooking yet, but maybe some of you are cooking off camera. And I'm just curious if we can get a head count. But first, before I even ask who's cooking, I want to recognize that I know that we've got some people here who've cooked with us before. I see you, Rachel. Who else is here that's been to one of our cooking classes before? Please raise your real or digital hand so we can see you and welcome you back. I'm Karen, Gretel's sous chef. virtual sous chef. Which is what I really do is I'll be supporting her by reading out what's in the chat. We want this to be as interactive as possible. As Gretel alluded to, you know, this is new for us. Hi, Rachel. This is new for us in that in the before time, before the pandemic, we used to cook in person. And so this has been an adjustment for us to be on camera with you all. So we want to still make this as engaging as possible by having you all join us on camera, whether or not you're cooking, so we can see you, so we can talk with you. And if you can't be on camera, we totally get it. Engage with us in the chat, you know, put some questions that you have there. If you have techniques of your own that you use, you know, that are different than what Gretel is sharing or the same, and you want to add that, please do. And I see 2 participants have raised their hand. And it's Lean, hey Lean, and Dolores. Yes, I recognize your names. Welcome, thank you. So glad you're back. We can put your hands down. And yeah, and feel free to unmute yourself and come on and talk to us also. Don't feel like you've got to just say things in the chat. You can interrupt us. Totally fine. All right, and now I'm done interrupt. Oh wait, no, the other question was this. Hands down, who is cooking? Who's making the recipe like right now? Raise your real or digital hands if you are. It's okay, you're late, Amadoma. Amadoma's been with us before. Hello, my dear. Samira's cooking, Dolores is cooking. Fantastic. If you're able to come on camera, please do, even if not for the whole thing, if just for parts, so we can see how you're doing, and we can check in, and Gretel may be able to give you some support as well when she sees what's going on. All right. All right, people. Thanks for letting me do that, Gretel. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Keep
Anytime, Karen. So basically what I did, I actually, once I cut the butternut squash in half, I cut the top off and then I diced it. So these, I'm not sure if you're able to see, but this is more or less the way that the size that I diced them. So try to usually, when you dice your vegetables, make sure that they are uniform in size so that they're cooking at the same time. And then once I am done with this, then let's continue. And then with the bottom part, we would be doing the same, just cutting across. And then just dicing them. So for our recipe, we are going to also use a diced onion, and we are going to move on to that next. And I have already started to dice one, but I have the other half right here. So a way to finely dice your onion, you would like to hold it like this to try to keep your fingers safe and to hold the onion. And then the way to hold, the best hold our knife is by grabbing it. Let's say we have it like this, we do this, and we keep a tight grip. We wouldn't want to do this because that will strain your hand and it could actually make it hurt. I am going to cut the onion lengthwise, but not all the way through. We want to leave the end attached so that we can make it easy to cut. Then once we do this, we are going to cut it across this way, and then slowly we're going to cut it off. And as you can see, it gives us a fine dice. Here you go. So this is actually the size that we are looking to cut our onions. Now with once I finish cutting up the onions, the ends, I usually don't throw them out. What I do with them is that I put them to the side, and I have like a Ziploc bag in the freezer. So all of my veggie ends like this, I actually save them and freeze them. And when I have enough, I would be carrot tops or celery or any aromatics. Once I have enough, then I boil it with some water. I like to put a little and in it I like to put a little what we call allspice, the whole allspice, and then just cook it down, and then you have your homemade veggie stock. So I hope that that is something that you will use in the future. So now, what we are going to do, we're going to.
Actually, before you move on, can you speak a little bit about the knife you use for the butternut squash?
Yes, I use that actually as some two-corner knife. You could also use a chef's knife. This knife is about, it's a pretty big knife, but the situation, we want to use a sturdy knife because the butternut squash is very, it's hard. It's a hard vegetable. So you need something that is going to, you are going to use force with it, but control force. You don't want a knife that's a little bit flimsy that could break while you're trying to cut the butternut squash, or that it can actually harm you. So something like this is pretty strong. And also by holding it the way that I mentioned, that gives you control as well as you are cutting your vegetables. Thank you, Karen, for that question.
Actually, it was from a couple of people, but sorry, I didn't catch them. Give me 1 second. It was Lori Goodman. What knife was it? And also, Ma, is that how I say your name? M-A, wants to know which chef knife is good.
As a brand of knife?
I think that's what you're asking, Ma. If it's a different question, please speak up. But maybe, and I know I don't have a preference for brand knife.
I was going to say that. Go ahead, Karen. Thank you. Because I'm the same way. Yeah,
I can speak to that. We don't really have preferences, and there's no brand that's sponsoring us that we can give you. So what I would say is, when you want to use the best knife that fits your hand. So there's a way to, like, you feel it. You want a knife that has a good weight for you. 8-inch works for me. That is the length of the knife. So this the length of the blade. It's the length of the blade. 7.5 to 8 inches is the length of my blade. And that's where I feel I have the most control. So you really want to be in the store and kind of hold it and maneuver it and see, like, don't wave at anybody, you know what I mean? But feel it and see if that works for you. And you really won't know until you're using it what's best. But I find that the weight matters to me. Like, it has to feel like it has some weight of its own, and also that I have control of it. So don't get caught up so much on the brand. But the key is that you have the chef knife is an essential knife that we use in our kitchens. And also it needs to be sharp. So the sharper the knife, the more safe the knife, the more easily you're able to cut through things without having to do a sawing motion. Yeah, that's all that I would say. All right.
Very good, Karen. Thank you very much. That I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
So now we are now going to start making our soup. So I here have 1 tablespoon of avocado oil. Of course, like I mentioned before, these are just it's just a guide for ingredients for yourself, and you could use whatever you have on hand. You can use canola oil, you can use vegetable oil. Those are very good oils as well. Then to the oil, I am going to add our onions. And we're going to add our garlic. And we're going to combine them for about, I would say, about 3 minutes or so until the onions are translucent.
Cool.
And while that is cooking, then I'm going to get the thyme ready. With the thyme, you could use it like this, put it in, and once it is done at the end, before you serve your food, your soup, you could just take them out. So I'm using like about 4 or 5 of them. If you would prefer, you could also get them off the stem if you don't like the stem in them. And just to de-stem it, all you do is just grab it from the top and then just pull it, and then you have the leaves at hand. If you do not have any fresh thyme, you could also use dried thyme as well.
Yep. Or other herbs would work well too. They just,
Yes.
right? Other fresh herbs will be fine. We love to use herbs in our cooking. Just play with them. The sturdier herbs can go in when Gretel puts the thyme in because it'll hold up through cooking. But if you have a more delicate herb, you'd want to wait until the end. One thing, Gretel, someone is
Yes.
asking, what are you boiling for 3 minutes? What's in the pot?
No, basically in the pot, I already have here avocado oil, garlic, and onions. So I put in the to saute everything in there for about, I would say about 2 to 3 minutes most. Once the onions become translucent.
So we're sauteing those, right?
That is correct.
Happening. Okay, so Zamira, nothing is boiling. We're just sauteing.
No, not yet.
Not yet. And what Annette shared that she bought the squash already cut up to make her job a lot easier. So she
that is perfect. That is perfect.
Right? We love
everything that works for you. Yes.
Exactly, make things easier. And I know for myself, I had such a hard time the first couple of times I tried to cut butternut squash that I stopped. I started to put in the oven. I learned that I can put it in the oven whole, just poke a few holes in it first, and then wait like 15, 20 minutes and then cut it. And then it cuts through like butter. And then I stopped. Ever since then, I was like, I don't have to worry about fighting with the squash and sharpening no, just make my life easy. So we're all about making your life easy. Do what works.
Definitely. Right. And now that the onions are translucent, then I am going to add in the bay leaves, about 2 or 3 of them. I am going to add 1 tablespoon of fennel seeds. And the fennel seeds, not sure if you're able to see them, but they look a little bit like anise. They have a licorice taste to them, and that will give the soup a nice flavor as well. And I am also going to add some red pepper flakes. Actually, the recipe calls for 1 teaspoon, but this is to taste. You like it spicy? Go ahead. Use as much as you like or as little as you like. Then we are going to kind of stir to have the spices cooked a little, the fennel seeds, and the butternut. I'm sorry, and the bay leaves and the fennel seeds. And then we are just going to add our butternut squash and kind of mix it to combine. And once we see that it has combined, then we are going to add, this is 6 cups of vegetable stock. But again, you could use it to your liking. If you prefer to use chicken stock or any other sort of stock, by all means, you could use it. But we are promoting plant-based, so we are using the vegetable stock. And once we put in this, we'll stir it again to try to combine everything. And last but not least, will be 2 60-ounce cans of white beans, any kind of beans. I am here using white northern or gray northern actually beans, but you could use the small white beans, or you could use the cannellini, which is the white kidney beans. I took the 2 cans, I ran it on the water to rinse off any excess salt. And then I am going to add this to the pan again, and then we will stir everything to combine. And then we will allow it. Yes.
One more question from I don't want to mess up your name. Adoma. Amadoma. We've had you. Hi, Amadoma. So glad you're back. Why don't you share your question out loud? And Gretel,
I'm admiring your hot plate. What kind of stove is that?
This is it's actually a hot plate, basically. One brand, I'm not 100% sure, but it's like one of those It's just a simple one. It's actually doesn't have a coil, so it's coilless. You don't see the coil on top. And it is this one is not the one that you is cool to the touch. This one gets hot as well.
Oh, okay, because I've
So,
seen
yeah.
those that it could cook, but it won't burn you if you like working with children. That's
Yeah.
a great one to work with.
Right. This is not one of those, unfortunately. But I know
Ah.
which one you're talking about. It's an induction hot plate, the one
Yeah.
that you're talking about. It would only cook when you put a pot on it.
Yep.
But yeah, unfortunately, this one is not that one, but it does the job as well.
Do you know if this recipe is Instant Pot friendly? Because I make soup in the Instant Pot and it comes out great.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I'm not a big Instapot user. I need to get with the program myself. But by all means, I mean, I know that we're going to work in the morning, and we might have, if you have a slow cooker as well. But Instapot, I would see, I probably would cut your cooking time in half or even a quarter, because it has the pressure cooker function in it. So as you know.
One of my clients raved about hers, and I left her house and went to Target and got one.
No way. I love it. Now that's marketing for you. That's
I actually have a niece. We call her in the family the queen of the of the Instapot. She cooks everything. She cooks rice and everything. I was like, whoa, I need to get with the program. So I need to actually start, because it is a very versatile product. And for us people who go to work, we have families to feed. That is a great asset to have.
awesome. Gretel, this is one of your recipes, right?
Yes, it is.
Do you want to share how you came up with it? Someone in the chat is asking.
Okay, well, I actually was a fan of the Sopa Toscana from the Italian, but that one calls for sausage. So I was actually trying to find a recipe that didn't call for potatoes and that didn't call for the sausage itself. So kind of playing with it, I actually find that having the red pepper flakes in it, having the fennel seed will give you that flavor.
Yes. Of sausages, right?
Exactly.
Trick I use also. If folks don't know, fennel seeds or even fresh fennel has a taste like anise or like licorice, which is weird, but it's the flavor of sausages. It's like that background that's in sausages. And so when we don't cook with, when we want to like leave out the meat, but we still want that flavor, we'll sometimes trick ourselves with the fennel seed. So that's what Gretel is talking about doing here.
That is correct. So we will allow our soup to boil for about a good 10 to 15 minutes or even less. But we will let it boil until the butternut squash is nice and soft. So we will wait, and while we are waiting, of course, we will continue answering questions, and also we will get our kale ready. So this kale here is it's a curly kale, but you can use any other type of kale that there is. We have what they call the Tuscan kale, which is it's less rough than this one. And we could use also collard greens instead of the kale. We could use mustard greens. Any type of greens will work with this. So usually with the kale, we need to remove this vein right here in the middle. This is very tough, and it's very hard to actually digest it. But it is very simple to just take it off. We just grab the kale and then just go all the way down just to get in. Oh, and this, if you like, you could save it for your stock pot. That will work as well. And the kale, I am going to try to cut it in ribbons, because this one is very curly. So the ribbons may not work with this one, but something like the Tuscan kale would work, but we could also tear it with our hands. And this is a good job to give to your children if you want to get them involved in the cooking process. Let them get their hands in it, and you know that when children actually help and participate in the cooking, they love to eat what they cook. Pretty much. And as you know, as I mentioned earlier, kale is very high in it's a good antioxidant. It has vitamin C. It is an anti-inflammatory food as well. And
Yeah.
it's very filling. It has a lot of fiber as well.
Wanda was sharing that she's really glad that this is anti-inflammatory. Wanda, do you want to share why that's important to you? You can come off mute and talk to us. We've got time.
Yeah, that's because I suffer from inflammatory. I suffer from arthritis and stuff like that. So it's really good for me.
That's
to get
awesome.
like
Have
this.
you been treating your illness with foods in the past?
I had to at one point. I had to go gluten-free to see if it works. It kind of worked. I mean, I still suffer from it, but if I eat better, I'm pretty sure it'll get better.
Definitely.
Ginger and turmeric are good for inflammation.
As well.
Anything that's spicy, well.
Yeah. And
Turmeric is really good, and ginger as well for the anti-inflammatory.
Yes. Doing that. Yeah, just to give context, folks who might not be familiar with anti-inflammatory foods and its connection to our health, the idea is that a lot of illnesses that we humans suffer from are because of inflammation in our body. And a lot of the fast foods that we eat, a lot of the processed foods cause inflammation in our body. It's why beautifully fed food exists. The idea that we heal ourselves through the food that we cook is really important. And so, Wanda, my biggest thing, yes, it's really important for you to look for anti-inflammatory foods, yes. And even beyond that, just the more time that you can have where you're cooking for yourself, or you have other people who are cooking for you. That's always great too. And using just like the freshest ingredients available, and just cooking like real food, not processed cans. We don't have anything against canned food, but again, making sure that all the ingredients are ingredients that you recognize, that are, that is just the canned thing and not a bunch of preservatives and things you can't pronounce. Like real food is really our focus. So just making sure of that. So I just wanted to put that in. Thanks so much for letting us know, Wanda. And we're glad to give you another recipe. Woohoo.
So while we wait, I mean, we have the floor open to questions. If you have any questions, please.
Aww. Folks are missing Fiona. Y'all should know Fiona is another one of our chefs at Beautifully Fed Food. There are actually 4 of us chefs, and there's 6 of us in the business. And so typically you'll be seeing one of us cooking, and Fiona is not here today, but she will be back for another one. So thanks for asking, Rama, for sharing that. I'm looking to see, Cheryl had to leave. We talked about fennel seeds. I think those are all the questions we have so far. One thing that came up. Oh, Joe wants to know. So Joe is sensing, Gretel, your cultural heritage, and wants to know, how is this connected to your roots? He said the question is this Puerto Rican? Is it Dominican? What is this recipe? How does it connect?
Well, it is the thought of it was Italian inspired. However, we do have our little if we could say our little Hispanic heritage in it. The Dominican part for me would be the thyme. I mean, in my family, my mother loved thyme. She used to use thyme in the beans. She used to use the thyme in the beans. That is sometimes it's not an unusual thing that you would find like in Spanish Caribbean cooking, but for her it meant that's something that she used. Her mother, my grandmother, used it as well. So I incorporate that in my cooking a lot, and also I have thought my daughter and my nieces, they usually use it as well. Right, but if you want to make it your own, you want to make it more what we call Spanish, by all means, if we use a little sofrito in there. Basically, sofrito is a combination of cilantro, garlic, peppers, and you could use also lemon or lime in it, and have your cilantro also at the end, serve it with it. And we are using the butternut squash. You could also substitute it with a cabocha, which is something that is used a lot in the Caribbean as well. So you could actually incorporate that in there. This may not have as much, but it is actually it's something that could be it could be tweaked to your liking, as I mentioned.
Definitely. Just so y'all who don't know, Gretel is from the Dominican Republic. My family is from Jamaica and Cuba. I was born in New York in the Bronx, and I'm in Florida right now, in case that matters to you. What I wanted to say though is that what I wanted to ask you, Gretel, is did you have is there a cultural dish that involves pumpkin in a soup?
They actually
we use the
there
pumpkin
is.
butternut squash, yeah.
Yeah, there is actually. We use our what called sancocho, which is a kind of like a stew. It consists of meats and different types of root vegetables, but also a big part of it is having the pumpkin or the squash in it. Yeah, because usually it is used to add that consistency, that thickness, and then some of it is actually taken out and mashed to put it back in the soup so that it gives the soup a nice yellow color.
Yeah.
And also it gives the soup a little bit of thickness as well.
Yeah, more body. So if you wanted to do that with this, you can add the pumpkin instead of the butternut squash, or you can still use the butternut squash, but like mash it to thicken it for a similar consistency, but a different soup entirely. All right.
Okay. And yeah, and basically at the end of towards the end, we are going to have the option of mashing the soup. If we yes, so that you could actually, if you like it nice and creamy, make it this creamy without actually adding the cream. You can take some of the mix of the soup, put it in a blender, and blend it in. If you want to just completely a cream of bean soup, let's put it that way, you could actually just blend the whole thing and have it that way. Or pretty much I prefer to have it nice and chunky because I want it kind of like when I take a bite, I just want to get that feeling. You know, it's like they said, I like to chew my food.
Yeah,
I love kind of enjoy all the flavors and have that consistency, that chunkiness to the soup.
Yeah, perfect. All right, more people are asking more questions. Okay, here we go. Gretel, the dish is called sancocho, right? The other stew you're referring to? Sancocho, yes. Sancocho. Yes, Imani, it's called sancocho. Wanda wants to know how many calories are in this dish. I know the answer is we don't know. And I'd love to elaborate on that if I may, Gretel. Is it okay?
Go ahead, Carrie.
And this will also, in part, I think, hopefully, Evelina, give you a little bit more insight into Beautifully Fed Food. So, Beautifully Fed Food, I'll answer both questions together. So, but to be clear, Wanda asked a question about the calories. Evelina wants to know about Beautifully Fed Food. I'm sure it will be of interest to all of you, so I'm going to answer. So what it is Beautifully Fed Food. We are a collective of women of color, like Gretel shared earlier, committed to sharing, how our cultural foods as well as the foods that we love and are inspired by in ways that are really delicious. Like it's important to us that the food tastes good and not just, and is not just good for us. And one of the ways that we know, and part of why we do this work is we want to heal ourselves and one another through this food, because we've learned, my background is in public health, and a number of our chefs are also health coaches. And collectively, we've learned and are teaching ourselves and one another that, so much of the disparities that exist in health right now are a result of our diet. Our diet, what we're eating or what we're not eating, can either cure us and make us really well and strong, or it can cause a lot of problems, and including health and including health problems and subsequent death. And so we've learned that by cooking our own foods, by focusing on fresh ingredients, by making sure that it's that things are plant-based. And granted, I should also tell you this: none of us are. No, rather, there are 6 of us in Beautifully Fed Food. Only one of us is a vegan, every other one of us eats meat. That might surprise folks when we tell them we're a plant-based business, but the idea is we support plant-based eating, and we know that plants are the star of our diets and should be heralded. And so we don't demonize meat. We think meat's great. We eat it. It's fine. But we eat it in smaller quantities, and the quality of it really matters. So all right, so get back to the question, Wanda, how many calories? We don't focus on the calories. We don't focus on nutrition, like counting out nutritional content and all this, because we know as long as we are really showcasing food, that's what matters. And so we are looking at our plate to make sure that it's colorful. If it's got a number of different colors, then it represents a number of phytochemicals and phytonutrients that our body needs to be healthy. And so the more colorful your plate, the more varied the nutrition you're getting. And so that's where we put our energy and our thought. And you know, we don't body shame. It's not a matter of weight either with us. It's really a matter of how we feel in our bodies, how we fit in our clothes also is helpful. Because your clothes don't lie. You're welcome. Your clothes don't lie. If they start to feel a little bit tight, you know, we might need to make some adjustments there. But yeah, we really just let the food speak to us. And it's also about how we respond to the food. Like, not every food is for everybody. And that's why I mentioned the fact that only one of us is vegan. A vegan diet isn't for everybody. So you really need to pay attention to the food that you're eating, what works for you, what doesn't. Trust your body. We part of our value system at Beautifully Fed Food, we honor the wisdom of our bodies, of our ancestors, of the food itself. We allow our foods to teach us what works and what doesn't, and our bodies know. So I hope that's helpful.
I read recently that stress increases the cortisol, which adds the pounds. So if you counting calories and you stressed out,
Honey, then
you
there's
might
that.
be putting on weight anyway. So if you feel good about what you're eating and you're eating plant-based or more plant-based, you're less likely to put on the pounds.
Look at that. Who's that sharing their knowledge?
Amadoma.
Amadoma. Thank you, my dear. Exactly. And
I study food because I like to eat, and I ain't trying to, you know. I
You like
study food, okay?
I hear you, Amadoma. I
That
hear
is
you.
so true. And you reminded me, Amadoma, when you were talking about the stress levels and cortisol, what was it that I was just thinking about? The fact that studies have shown that actually cooking, you know, that the act of cooking and stirring your own pot and making it calms you down and is a stress reliever. Provided what the study didn't say, which I was surprised at, is provided that you're not trying to cook when you're hungry. So we make sure folks know, and it seems like counterintuitive for a lot of people. Like, I'm cooking because I want to eat. Like, I'm hungry.
Well, my best meals come when I'm hungry. What you talking about?
I know. But don't be hungry, but don't be starving. Okay,
Yeah,
like don't come to the kitchen, because when you're starving, you're hangry. That energy goes into your food. It's not a good idea. You want it to be done quick, fast. It's never fast enough. So even in our cooking classes in person, we've always done it so that we have snacks for our people before they're cooking. So you come in, you have a snack, and that way you're not stressed. You can enjoy the act of cooking. So for any folks who really hated cooking before or think that they don't like it, think about whether or not you were only cooking when you really needed to eat something. And maybe what you need to do is eat something first and then cook. It seems weird, but trust me, we've done this. It makes sense.
You know what you mentioned about stress and the energy going into the food? Someone pointed out to me that sometimes the people who are working in kitchens are worried about immigration issues, and you know, sometimes they're stressed that somebody may come in and there could be a raid or whatever, and some of that energy might be going into the food.
Oh yeah. Restaurant cooking is the most stressful place. Restaurants, the
When you
kitchen.
cook it yourself, you know what's in there.
They're cursing each other out in many restaurants. There's a whole scene going on in the back. So
it is a very hectic environment. So at this point, I want to.
Hold on, Heidi has her hand raised. What's up,
Oh,
Heidi?
go ahead, Heidi.
Hi, I just wanted to know how you keep your time. I buy fresh herbs all the time, but they seem to go before I'm done using them.
I wrap them, wrap it in paper towels, and then put it in a Ziploc bag. That extends the life of it. And also, I dry them myself as well. So if I see that they're about to turn, I just take them out and I put them in the oven at 200 degrees. And it depends on the herb. It could take between 30 minutes to an hour for you to fully dry it. Something like thyme usually will take about maybe 20 to 30 minutes, more or less.
Great.
What temperature do you have it in the oven at?
200.
200. Got it.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
That's really good tips.
You're very welcome. So I'm going to go ahead and actually taste and see. And from what I see, yes, our butternut squash is nice and soft. So I am going to remove the stem of the thyme. And also in the process, I will taste a little bit of it to make sure if I want to add more salt. I would like to add salt. I did not add any salt as I was cooking, because also I do mind our sodium intake. We have to, some of us may have suffer from high blood pressure and all this, so we want to keep our sodium intake to a minimum. And you actually, again, this is to taste. If you feel like it needs more salt, you could add it. And for me, the soup is perfect. It has the right amount of kick to it. It is really yummy. So I actually cannot wait for it to be done so I can have a bowl. Now, at this point, I'm going to use a potato masher. But again, like I mentioned earlier, if you want it creamier or you want it smoother, you could by all means use your blender. But I want to just kind of leave it a little chunky. So that way, for me, I like to have bites into the food. And actually just mashing it a little bit like this, it also does thicken the consistency up. And then once I have this, then I am going to add our kale to it. And because this one is the curly one is it's rougher than, let's say, a Tuscan or a dinosaur kale. I am going to let it cook for about 5 minutes or so. So that is nice and soft. Okay. And soon enough, we're going to be tasting this dish. I am very happy with the results on that little taste that I just did now. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yum.
Yeah.
What I didn't mention to everybody watching who's not cooking along is where'd y'all go? Hold on. Is one of the things we've also learned from doing these classes and having one of us co-host is that the person who's co-host and the person who's not cooking, it's smart to have a snack. Speaking of being hungry, it's smart to have a snack because you will invariably get hungry, wanting to taste what they're tasting in the room, and you can't. So yeah, I have snacks. I have my tea and some crackers and cheese to hold me down. So just an FYI for future classes. Gretel, I want to check in with the folks who said they're cooking with us today.
Go right ahead. Yes.
Right?
See how it's coming along.
Where are you? Who are you? Raise your hands again and remind me who you are. Who's cooking? You're not on camera, so I can't see you. So you'll have to either come off mute and tell us about it or raise. Ooh, Zamira, that's right, it's you. Talk to us.
So I'm boiling everything, the vegetable stock. Right now it kind of looks like the squash is big cubes right now. I don't know if it's supposed to be like, melting or if it's supposed to be that way.
So usually the butternut squash does hold its shape. So if it still looks in big cubes, that is the purpose of using the potato masher to kind of break it down a little more. And again, like if you want your soup to be creamier, you could put it in the blender or blend some of it to make it more smoother. But it is by the way you're describing it, it sounds like you're quite on track.
Yeah.
And if you might want to try tasting a piece of butternut squash to make sure that it's cooked all the way through, it might just be a matter of needing to cook longer. Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, Zamir, are you able to come on camera at some point so we could see how you?
Let me see. I'm on my phone, so this is what I look like while cooking.
Maybe when it's finished, maybe you can just focus the camera on the.
Hold on, I think she. Oh, look. Hold on, y'all. Add spotlight. Look how pretty. Oh, it's boiling. Yeah, take out a piece of the butternut squash if you can, with a little fork. Or am I asking too much?
I'm not ready to taste it yet.
Okay, you're not ready to taste it yet. It looks, it's coming together. What do you think, Gretel? Do you see it?
Yes, actually, I would say it looks. I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. All right, thanks for sharing, my dear. Anybody else? You're welcome.
And we are about done here, believe it or not.
Stop it.
Yes, this is looking so beautiful. And the one thing I forgot to take out was actually the baby. That's also another thing that you would
Oh, that's right.
take out because you don't want to, when you're eating your soup, find a piece of it.
Okay.
And now I am going to serve our soup. And if you aren't able to see it, because I'm putting it in a bowl, I'm going to get closer to the camera.
Cool.
So that you're able to take a look at it.
Yay. While you're dishing yours out, Annette wanted to share, because she's also cooking along, but her video isn't working. But she said her squash is still hard. Do you have any suggestions for what they're to do about the squash?
I could actually, probably cutting it a little smaller will work. And I'm not sure if you're covering your pot when the soup is boiling or you let it simmer. That also speeds up the cooking process when you have a little.
Smart. Put a lid on it, Annette, if you haven't already, or cut it up a little bit, or just let it cook a little bit longer.
Longer, right. That, of course, at this point, yeah, let it cook a little longer. But if in the future you make a recipe again, a good idea would be to try to cut the butternut squash a little smaller, if anything.
Great tips. Thank you, dear. Let's see. Annette says, okay. Cool. Imani. Imani says that she has a PDF. She thinks it came from WorkWell that gives tips on storing fruit and veggies. Nice. And this time it says remove the bands and ties and wrap it in a damp towel and store it in a sealed container. So like what you said, Gretel. Sweet. We actually should have a PDF that we share with folks too. That's smart.
So here we have the finished product. I'm going to get a little closer to the camera and let me know if you're able to see this beauty.
Oh yeah, right there. Perfect. Oh, will you take a bite so we can see?
I definitely have. I've been waiting for that because I just tasted a little bit just to see if it was on point with the salt, and it's not to toot my own horn. This is delicious.
Toot, baby, toot. It's you made it.
I just wanted to blow a little bit because it's hot.
Right. It's a mistake I often make. I'm so greedy.
It's so good.
It's good.
And for me, I guess I put the right amount of the chili flakes because I don't like it too hot where my face is burning. I just like that kick when I put it in my mouth, and then I just get the kick in the background. And the butternut squash is nice and tender, and it is very sweet as well. So it's a contrast. You get like the little sweetness, and then you get the kick in the background. And the beans are nice and buttery. And I didn't take a little bite of the kale, so I'm gonna go ahead and take another bite to see how the kale came out.
Why not? I can imagine all those textures together, the creaminess of the beans, the softness of the butternut squash, the like that texture that kale brings, you know, just all together. It's so good.
It is very good, actually. The kale is cooked to perfection. I personally don't like hard. I don't like mushy veggies. So this kale cooked in this soup perfectly. It's not mushy. It has a bite to it, and it has a little crunch, but it's not rough. It is very, very beautiful.
Very, very awesome. This So cool. And
I
spinach,
wish, I wish
let's
you were here.
know if spinach can be used in place of the kale.
Yes, you can, definitely. Any leafy green veggie you can use. Yes, kale cooks a lot. I'm sorry, spinach tends to cook a lot faster. So I
Yeah.
would actually just put the spinach in right before you turn it off the pot.
Yep.
Um,
Same.
Yeah, because the heat and the soup and the broth will actually just wilt it enough so that it won't look, it won't lose its color. It will hold the bright color. that is.
Exactly. I agree wholeheartedly. Everybody's saying the soup looks delicious. Rosemary says she's even going to try to make it. Anybody else willing to make it now that you might not have been thinking about making it before? Seeing her eat it may have made the difference for you. You want to know? Letitia's going to try to make it. Annette, yes, you've used escarole before. That's a green that they typically use when they're making the soup. Is that the green that they use in Italy for the Italian version?
Yes, they do. They use them. And actually, they do the Toscana. They use the
Kale
kale.
also? Got you.
But they
Sometimes-
use like in their wedding soups. They use the
Yeah.
escarole. And escarole is actually a good vegetable. It's very also it's similar to spinach when it comes to the cooking.
I'll put it at the very end.
It towards the very end. Yes.
Very cool. Yes, Annette, do make it. So cool. So we're almost, and I know a few folks joined us late. Sorry you missed us, but I'm gonna put the recipe in here so that you can make it on your own. I think that's everything. Right, Gretel? Any final words you want to share with people?
Well, no, I just hope that when you make this, that you enjoy it with your families, and it is a great you could actually accompany this with maybe nice crusty bread, toasted with a little garlic on it.
Yummy.
That will go delicious. If some folks like myself love rice all the time, you can serve it also with a little side of white rice.
Yeah.
And it is to me it's a very delicious and nutritious meal. And basically we see here 4 to 6 servings because it depends. Someone like me, I like a bowl of soup like this. This would be my dinner, and I'll be satisfied with it. But some other people might serve it as just maybe an appetizer. So you will go a little. The service will be a little smaller, if anything.
Yeah. Janelle says she's gonna make this tonight. Please,
Very
Janelle,
good.
take pictures of it if you can. We'd love to see. Share it with us. Do anything else? Oh, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you so much for your participation, for talking to us live, sharing with us in the chat. These classes are all the more fun because of your involvement in it. So we're so glad you're here. Our diehards, our regulars, as well as those of you who are new to us. We hope to see you again very, very, very soon. Thank you.
I would say the same thing. Thank you all. I really enjoyed interacting with you and having the questions. I mean, it was very lovely. I'm really happy.
Awesome.
Really, really happy.
So much.
Thank you. This was great.
This was wonderful.
I'm
Thank
going
you.
to make it
Thanks.
before the
Glad
week is
to have
up.
you guys back.
Good night, everyone.